So another mixed week of trading, another week full of economic data, week full of earnings, lots happening. And then one more thing that we were going to talk about today that we don't normally talk about is a specific stock, which is FRC, which is First Republic Bank. That stock has been requested by our members, by a lot of people, discussed on the internet, Reddit, Wall Street bets, all sorts of stuff. So I figured I'd touch on it and kind of give my thought process on that stock, what I'm looking for. And they did actually have earnings today, so it is going to be a big one to watch in the coming days and seeing how it reacts to the earnings that actually came out today. So as you guys can see on the S&P 500 heat chart, it has been a mixed week over the last 2 weeks. Actually, last week was mixed. The week before that was mixed. If you guys watched last week's video, you guys saw that we have been trading in this consolidation channel, pretty much going nowhere, right? We open at a certain price point, and by the end of the day, whether we went up or down, we kind of come back to that same price point where we were, not really moving the market in any which way. And this might actually change this week. The reason being is because of earnings, actually. We have a lot of big tech reporting. We'll touch on that. Microsoft is one of them. Google's one of them. Amazon is one of them. We have quite a bit of earnings to cover today. We're not gonna touch base on all of them, but I do want to talk about some of the bank earnings that we have been seeing, just because we're going to talk about FRC and kind of what's happening with that stock and how those earnings did today. So heat chart, you guys can see that, manufacturing pretty mixed. Some are red, some are green. We haven't seen the whole sector doing well or bad. It kind of just depends on which name. And again, that really comes down to that consolidation that we've been seeing. Services, same thing. Finance, insurance, and real estate, same thing. Retail trade has probably been doing the best, I would say, for the most part. But otherwise, Amazon hasn't been doing great either. So we'll see how earnings actually react. And those are tomorrow. And then transportation, communication, electric, gas, and sanitary services, pretty mixed. Quite a bit of green, but pretty mixed. Mining has probably been doing the best, XOM, and then COP. Wholesale trade, pretty green for the most part. In construction, same thing, pretty green for the most part. But otherwise, overall, the market has been pretty mixed. So it has been a tough market to trade, and there's no doubt about that. And, if you guys want to know more about our strategy and our plan and kind of what we are seeing and what we are planning on doing, watch last week's video. I go over it quite a bit. Talk about the channel that we're in, the consolidation phase that we're in right now, and kind of what our play is as far as, if things break out, what are we going to be trading? If things break down, what are we going to be trading? So that's kind of what we talked about last week. This week, again, nothing much changed, so not too much of an update there. We will go over QQQ and SPY. Again, not too much to update on, but we will cover that just for you guys. So earnings, again, quite a bit of earnings. Today we had Coca-Cola, First Republic Bank reported. Those are the two big ones. Whirlpool, not too significant, but Coca-Cola and First Republic Bank. Phillips is pretty important too, I guess. But those are the big ones that reported today. Tomorrow, though, we have a little more important stocks reporting, right? We have Microsoft, Alphabet, which is Google, Chipotle, not so important, but Visa. Those are all reporting after hours tomorrow, after close. Verizon, UPS, McDonald's, 3M, GM, PepsiCo, Spotify. Those are all reporting tomorrow before market opens. And then April, we have Boeing, or not April, Wednesday. I'm reading April over here. Wednesday, Boeing before market open. We have Boeing, Hilton, Tech, ADP is a big one. Those are all reporting after close. We have Meta, also known as Facebook, Roku. And that's pretty much the two big ones that I think would be moving the market the most. Thursday, pre-market, we have American Airlines. So that's going to be a good one to watch in terms of travel and other airlines, how those are doing. Caterpillar, Valero, Southwest, another airline reporting, MasterCard, Crocs. That one has actually been a pretty interesting stock to watch. And then after hours, we have Amazon, Intel, Snap, Pinterest, and those are probably the biggest ones. Principals, I guess, an important one to watch too. And then Friday, we have ExxonMobil, Chevron, a lot of gas reporting there. crude oil, Charter, Chart, and those are probably the big ones too. Cameco, not really too familiar with that company, but that one's also reporting, and those are all before market opens. We don't have anything reporting after market closes on Friday. So earnings, you guys can find those on Earnings Whispers, or just pretty much Google it, and that calendar should pop up. Or you guys can take a screenshot of this if you guys want to have this for you guys. Everybody on the team, all the members, you guys have that in the trading floor, so you guys can reference back to it and see what earnings are reporting when, just by scrolling through the trading floor. So that's pretty much it in terms of, you know, what we have on deck for earnings, and kind of how the market has been doing from a heat chart perspective. The one stock I want to talk about first and foremost is First Republic Bank. So what happened today? We actually had earnings today. We beat earnings today, believe it or not. And that kind of is in line with the rest of the financial sector, all of the banks that have been reporting earnings. Everybody has been pretty much beating earnings, right? So earnings expectation, an estimate was about 0.71 cents, almost 72 cents. And what we came in at was $1.23. So we beat earnings. That being said, though, why did the stock price drop? It doesn't look like it on this daily chart. But if we go into a 15-minute chart, we can actually see that the stock actually dropped after earnings. And the reason for that is, you know, they're planning on cutting employment. Their deposits are still down, which is, you know, something that should have been expected going into these earnings, at least for this bank stock right here, specifically for First Republic Bank. And the reason being is because it obviously struggled when the whole banking issue was going on. They did have a $30 billion bailout in a way from other banks, from I think it was 11 other banks. JP Morgan, who else was in there? There was quite a bit of other banks. JP Morgan, I think Citi was in there, Bank of America, and I think Wells Fargo was in there as well. They're also planning on cutting their workforce by 20 to 25%. So, you know, and one more thing they actually did was they actually cut or suspended dividend payouts, which was something that they were doing before, you know, they came into this issue. So that's kind of why we saw this pullback. But I do want to say, I don't think this is, you know, grounds to be, you know, scared of the stock specifically. And the reason being is because we actually didn't really drop too bad. It didn't do too bad at all, considering everything that's going on with the stock, right? We only came down to 1233 at its lowest. And if you guys zoom out to, let's go to a 30-minute chart, for example, we've actually been just trading in this consolidation phase as well for quite some time, right? Let's actually go to an hour chart, more days, 20 days. So we've pretty much been trading in this consolidation phase for a very long time. So, you know, we didn't really drop or go up too far. 1685, we actually had a resistance up here back, I think it was like 2 weeks ago or so. So we've been pretty much trading between this 1685 range and this 1170 to $12 range. And that's pretty much where we're still at. Is it going to continue to drop? It's possible, right? Obviously, the earnings didn't come in, you know, extremely well, where, you know, guidance was great. The company's doing fantastic. They beat earnings. We didn't see none of that. But for the state that the company is in, it's actually doing very well, all things considered, right? And just in comparison to some other bank stocks that have been reporting earnings recently, BAC, right? Bank of America, they had an expectation of 79 cents. They came in at 94 cents. They beat earnings, right? And they also dropped, right? And they've kind of just been consolidating. So nothing too crazy there. JP Morgan, JPM, they beat earnings as well. 341 was expectation. 410 is what came in. They popped up, and then they pretty much have been trading sideways as well. So it's not just, you know, FRC, First Republic Bank, that has been trading sideways. It's just been the whole sector for the most part. And I think it's just the uncertainty after, you know, the depositors have been worried about, you know, whether their money is insured or not. And that's perfectly normal. And I think, you know, if the overall market does begin to pick up, we're going to obviously see this sector pick up as well. But if the overall market begins to kind of start crumbling, which is something that we have been talking about over the last, I'd say 2-3 weeks, then, obviously we might see more downside. So FRC, just because it's down like 90% doesn't mean it can't go any lower. And I've had that question come up a lot as far as, is it a good time to buy? And it really comes down to the fact that, looking at Citigroup, again, beat earnings. 165 was expected. 219 is what happened, and then we've been pretty much trading sideways since then. And then one more was Wells Fargo. Wait, as far as the ticker goes, let's see. Wells Fargo, same thing. Beat earnings, popped up, and then we've been pretty much trading sideways. So going back to FRC, the question of, is it a good time to buy because it's down so much? It doesn't mean that, it can't go any lower. It can definitely go lower. It's just a matter of, just because we've been trading sideways and we saw, in anticipation of earnings, we actually saw a lot of positive sentiment around the stock. So that does mean that, a lot of people are confident in it and they just don't want to get stuck in a stock that's going to be going sideways or, seeing a pullback like this, which is perfectly understandable, right? And, their guidance hasn't been too reassuring, right? They didn't really give us much other than the fact that, they're cutting back on expenses, and they're trying to kind of level things out and rebuild that confidence with their consumers and with their depositors, right? But I think with what we've seen as far as, banks being insured, even when the deposits are over 250,000 and the FDIC still coming through for those depositors, even though, the bank itself says that it's not insured. So something like we saw with Silicon Valley Bank, where their depositors were still insured, but the bank itself still didn't do well. So I think that should have put a lot of concern to rest for a lot of depositors. And I think it has. They just are trying to play it safe than sorry, right? And so our game plan here, with FRC, while the opportunity is obviously, an amazing opportunity when we've seen an absolute demolishment of the actual stock price. If you guys take a look at how far we've actually dropped since this whole thing happened, not even since the top, but pretty much since, we began that drop, we pretty much seen let's go ahead and actually measure from here, from 11, where we were. That drop was about, that can't be right. There we go. That's better. 91%. So 92% of a drop. And the upside potential is pretty much the same thing, right? We're looking at about 90%, right? As far as a move goes. So the potential for profit is obviously there, right? And the opportunity itself is great. And the one thing that we actually talked about, and I've mentioned to some people that did ask about this, we had some people from a membership group ask, and then we also had some people just from outside kind of approach me and be like, hey, have you seen this stock? What do you think about it? And the one thing I would always say is looking at the daily chart, right? Because this is really what is a big tell all, right? We actually saw a tremendous amount of volume over the last period of time where we actually saw this massive drop. So people are obviously interested in this particular stock, but when is a good time to buy, right? And so what we look at is this EMA line. So let me go ahead and get a drawing tool. So this EMA line right here, this blue line, is actually what we have been looking at. And so what we wanted to see, I've had this question come up over the last pretty much month since this thing dropped. And we have been so distant from this EMA. But today, even though our earnings caused the stock price to still drop a little bit, what happened today is actually the biggest part of this whole thing, and the biggest part of this conversation about this stock is we actually broke above the EMA on the daily chart, and we actually closed above it as well. So let me go ahead and zoom in so that you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. So if you look at the actual EMA line, which is this blue line, and where the stock price closed, even with the bad or the price dropping on earnings, we actually closed above this EMA, and we haven't seen this happen since we saw this drop happen, right? We've always been a significant distance away from the EMA, and we, for the first time in a very long time, actually broke above it. So if we zoom out to a bigger picture for you guys to kind of see where we're at in terms of other indicators, on the RSI, we are looking at, we are very, very oversold. So is the opportunity there for us to see more upside? Absolutely, before we become overbought, right? And so we're breaking above the EMA on the daily, right? We are still very, very oversold because this blue right here indicates that we are oversold. We are under that 30 mark on the RSI. So we have plenty of room to run to the upside. And the MACD has quite a bit of room to continue going, right? We haven't seen that decline, the convergence here of the moving averages, right? So, and the news wasn't all that bad, and we beat earnings, right? And it's just a matter of, I think, having that catalyst that drives the overall market. And I think that's what's really going to push this over the top and really push this stock. I wouldn't say we're necessarily going back to like 140 or 120 or wherever we were, but even for us to come back up to this first level of resistance, which is going to be right up here, which is this 58, 57, 58 area, for us to come up to here, we need some sort of catalyst, right? And so this is kind of the first indications that the stock still has life in it, and we still have quite a bit of potential for us to turn a good profit on this particular trade. It's just a matter of staying patient and buying in when we do see that push up. So today was a good, kind of a feeler day. And we really kind of want to see where things go from here on out. If we continue to hold above this EMA, then obviously this is going to be a good one to begin to scale into and have a target right up here for the first target of 58.69, potentially, all the way up if we do end up seeing some very positive news that is going to push the stock higher. But, that's going to be that first level of resistance to watch. So that's kind of my thought process with this. Should you be jumping into this or not? Obviously, I'm not a financial advisor, so I can't give you, a recommendation, but I can tell you what to watch, and that is what I am personally watching, the break above this. And as this continues to, rise, if it does continue to rise, I'm going to begin to scale in just to see if we can, continue to push higher. And if we do, obviously we're going to be turning a profit. However, if we do start seeing a turnaround and the stock actually dips right back down and starts to consolidate below this EMA, then what I'm going to do is probably cut losses and then, just hang out and wait for this thing to actually pop off if it does. If it doesn't, then we're just going to be ignoring it. And that's kind of how it's going to go with that. So that's kind of what's going on in terms of FRC. That's what I wanted to talk about in terms of this particular stock. Let's go ahead and talk about QQQ, give you guys a quick update with what's going on with QQQ. As far as QQQ goes, we are still consolidating in this consolidation phase that we are in. And so again, kind of what we talked about last week, until we break out below this breakout line or above this breakout line, I don't see a very significant move to be trading, right? Intraday, we did trade SQQQ, which is the inverse ETF for this particular, for QQQ, for the NASDAQ. So it's triple leveraged, and we actually traded SQQQ when we saw this market drop happening, right? And so when the market drop happens, SQQQ goes up. When the market goes down, TQQQ goes up when the market goes up. So when the market was dropping, we were in SQQQ, and then we ended up selling right at the support because we were at the bottom of this channel, right? And so obviously, you can hold and hope that it breaks, but just because of the pattern that it has been trading in, which pretty much came down, came back up, came down, came back up, came down, came back up, didn't really go anywhere over the last 2 weeks. As you can see, we came up, came down, came up, came down, and we're pretty much just at the bottom of this channel. So we locked up profits on SQQQ because we are at this support. And then we pretty much just waited for FRC and the news to come out with that and watched that. That's pretty much what we did today. Kept the team updated with that. Again, the plan is pretty much the same, right? If we do break above this EMA, or not the EMA, if we break above this resistance level that we've been at, we're going to be jumping into TQQQ. If we break below this, we're going to be jumping into SQQQ. We haven't seen, again, too much action happening with the market. It has always kind of like, we've opened up right up here, and then we pretty much closed at the same level. We opened up right around here. We closed at pretty much the same level. We opened up a little bit lower here in the morning, but we didn't close too much higher. Again, opened up pretty high, closed lower, opened up, closed at the same level. We haven't really been doing much, and it is pretty annoying. But sometimes you'll get this in the market, and you just have to be patient. On an intraday level, you can obviously trade these moves right here that you saw, or this move right up here, or this drop right up here. And it's all about, trading with the EMA, but on a 15-minute. So what we talked about with First Republic Bank on the daily chart using the EMA, we do the same thing on the 15-minute chart using the EMA. So when we break below the EMA, we'll go into a short. When we break above, we go into a long. And so intraday, you can trade at QQQ and SQQQ and TQQQ that way. And that's kind of what our game plan is in terms of intraday trades. But as far as a bigger picture move, what I talked about right here, a break above here or a break below here is kind of what we are going for. So SQQQ, if we break below this level, which is this 313, 312 level, or if we break above that 321 zone, we're going to be going for TQQQ because the market is going to be breaking up to the upside. Again, you're going to be watching the EMA, which is this blue line that we talked about with First Republic Bank, and a break above that, and that's your indication of an entry into either TQQQ or SQQQ. And so that's kind of the game plan with that. On a bigger picture, let's take a look at what's happening on a daily chart. What happens on a daily chart is actually quite interesting. We haven't seen this over the last 2 weeks, and see this break below this EMA on the daily chart. So we, for one, just finally closed below this EMA on the daily chart, which is indicating that we are testing this support right here at that 313, 312 zone. And so if we do break below this zone right here, that's going to be a move lower. We do have plenty of room to run on the RSI to the downside on the daily chart. We are, in a convergence to the downside on the MACD as well. So that is something that we're looking for in terms of, a short play or a long play. And our targets would be, the first target to the downside would be down here at, let me go ahead and clear the drawings. First level down here is going to be 306. And that's going to be at this 50-day simple moving average. The level below that is going to be down here at 289, 290 to 292. And that's going to be aligning with the 180-day and 200-day simple moving average, as well as the support level right over here that we've gotten from previous historic moves. So that's the two targets to the downside. To the upside, obviously that first level is that 320. We need to break that level to the upside. And then the level above that is going to be that 337 level. So you guys kind of know what we're going to be looking to jump into if we break up or break down. You guys now know what levels that we're watching. And then again, we do have a lot of earnings such as Microsoft, Google, and Amazon coming out this week. So hopefully the earnings that do come out in terms of big tech, because big tech does composite the S&P 500 quite a bit. We do hope that when the earnings come out, we either get clarity in terms of, a run up to the upside or more selling to happen, right? But I think we can all agree that, we're all tired of the market consolidating. So you guys let me know in the comments, are we going to continue to consolidate? Or are we going to break out, in terms of the First Republic Bank, that discussion, let me know. Do you think First Republic is going to survive? Do you think it's going to return to that 140 level? Or do you think that we're going to continue to consolidate and possibly see a bankruptcy or the bank, shut down? So let me know in the comments below as far as those two things go. The one last thing I do want to touch on is economic data that's going to be coming out this week. Today, we didn't have too much happen. Monday the 24th, not too much happened that was notable. So, a slow day today. The best thing we did today was focused on earnings. In terms of tomorrow, what we do have is house price index year over year and month over month for the month of February coming out. We also have the S&P HPI composite coming out tomorrow as well at 6 in the morning. And then we have building permits being reported at 6:30 in the morning. And then CB consumer confidence for the month of April is reporting at 7 in the morning Pacific time. New home sales reporting at 7 in the morning for the month of March. And those are pretty much the biggest things reporting on Tuesday. So we actually do have some economic data to pay attention to tomorrow. We also have those big tech earnings reporting tomorrow. So hopefully the combination of all of this actually moves the market in a certain direction so that we at least have something to be trading and not just sitting on cash. Obviously, everybody is excited to trade, but the difference is, right, you have to be trading something that's worth being traded, right? If you're just throwing money at the market when nothing's happening, not a very good strategy. Wednesday, what we have going on is we have core durable goods reporting, those orders for the month over month for the month of March. And then the other one is crude oil inventories. That's what we have on Wednesday. I think those are the biggest ones to pay attention to on Wednesdays. And as far as the crude oil inventories, that's going to have an impact on those Chevron and the other tech companies that have been, I think I closed out the earnings, but for the earnings that are happening on Friday, we do have some gas stations reporting. So that is actually going to have somewhat of an impact on those stocks. And then on top of that, you have earnings as well. And then Thursday, what we have is GDP quarter over quarter. And then we have GDP for the quarter one price index, initial jobless claims, continuous jobless claims, pending home sales month over month for the month of March. And then that's pretty much it for Thursday. And then Friday, we have core PCE price index month over month for the month of March reporting. And I think that's pretty much it for the week. We don't have anything else that is, too crazy. We have personal spending, personal income. Those are going to be interesting to pay attention to. And then again, PCE price index year over year, and then month over month for the month of March. So hopefully that gave you guys a quick update as far as, where the market's at, what our game plan is in terms of the levels that we're watching, what we're going to be trading for QQQ, and the inverse ETFs for that. What we think about, FRC and First Republic Bank and just the banking sector in general. Again, I think, we have been pretty much sideways, not only in the market, but in the financial sector as well. Everybody's kind of just hesitating and waiting for something to happen and give us some sort of direction. And then obviously, beating earnings is great. As far as, forecast and guidance, I think, First Republic did the best that they can with the circumstances that they're facing right now. I think it can definitely have been worse. So I don't think it was the worst thing to hear. But do I think First Republic has a chance of surviving? Absolutely. I think that, JP Morgan and all these other banks that invested, or not so much invested, but deposited money as depositors into First Republic Bank just to help them out. I don't think they would have done that if they knew that the bank was going to shut down, right? Or if it was just going to collapse, right? So they obviously have confidence in the bank. The bank itself has confidence. And, being down, I think it was like 36% or 35% as far as deposits go, up to today in terms of, where they were because of the whole Silicon Valley Bank. I don't think it's that bad. All things considered, right? I mean, it's obviously a significant chunk of cash that, they don't have in their deposits, but it could have been a lot worse. And so it hasn't been. And they obviously seem like they are doing their best to control the situation and to come out of it on top. So, in terms of that, I think they still have a shot. The EMA is going to be what I'm watching on the daily chart, the bigger picture. For now, I'm going to be watching the bigger picture on that and hope that, it ends up going in their favor and obviously gives us the opportunity to capitalize on that move, on that recovery. QQQ, again, we want to see a break above or below those two significant levels, that 320 level or that 312 to the downside level. We're going to be playing TQQQ or SQQQ in either directions in terms of those, depending on which way we see that breakout happen. And then obviously you guys got a coverage of, earnings this week and key economic data. So hopefully all of this information gave you guys a bit of a clear understanding as to where we're at with the market. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to this video. We do these videos every single week, and I'll see you guys on next week's Stock Talk video.